Pier number 1. Why Municipal Pier number 1? Because there were actually 5 other municipal piers introduced in the Burnham Plan of 1909, but only one of them got constructed in the city. It was a recession, and they only needed one. But just for one, try to use your imagination and try to picture how Chicago looked like with 5 municipal piers. That would have been crazy. We only have one, so please come check it out. It has a bunch of attraction for friends and family. The Children's Museum is there, Chicago Shakespeare, a giant Ferris wheel. If you like heights, I don't, I'm terrified of them. A rooftop, a hotel apparently. So iconic that the Queen herself was in Navy here back in the 80s. And she got a tooth refilled. Now let's look at one of the coolest things in Chicago, our city flag. On our left side, you're gonna find our Chicago city flag, which is one of the most iconic things in the entire world. And there's a lot of symbolism behind it. It has 3 white stripes, 2 blue stripes, and 4 6-pointed red stars. The 3 white stripes represent the different parts of the city, the north, the south, and the west. There's no east because it's Lake Michigan. The 2 blue stripes represent the different bodies of water that surround the city of Chicago, the Chicago River and Lake Michigan. And no, they're actually not connected to each other. We're going to learn about that later. The 4 6-pointed red stars mark historic events that had a huge influence in Chicago. First one, Fort Dearborn, 1803. Second one, the Great Chicago Fire, 1871. Third one, the World's Fair of 1893. And fourth one is Second World's Fair. That's how we get the iconic city flag. Now, as we cross the bridge, get your cameras ready and your eyes open because you're going to see how Chicago gives us a proper introduction. Oh yes, there's Chicago saying hello. You can almost feel how the city's talking to you and breathing. Chicago is truly an architectural paradise. I love this city, and I'd like to open the tour by talking about one of my favorite buildings in the entire city. On our left side, we're gonna find this tall, shiny building with shades of blue and green, curvy. It looks like a weird finger. This is the St. Regis. The beautiful St. Regis has 101 stories. It was finished in 2020, but it only opened in 2021 because of COVID, if anybody remembers that. And it was designed by the architect Jeannie Gang from Studio Gang. Chicago-based architect, hometown hero. We love Jeannie Gang, and she has been changing the game of architecture for the last couple of years. She is really amazing, and she decided to use the river as inspiration for the St. Regis. That's why if you notice closely, you're gonna see that the St. Regis has 7 different shades of blue and green imprint in it, go from the deepest to the lightest, trying to camouflage its environment. It has a wavy structure, imitating the flow of the water, the waves of the river. Now this building right here is the 3rd tallest building in the skyline of Chicago, but listen up. The St. Regis is actually the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman architect. Yes, Jeannie Gang, we love you. She decided to use the river as inspiration. It's so poetic and beautiful. Now, architects here in Chicago have to deal with a lot of wind. And so do we, because it's a windy city after all. And therefore, they have to come up with creative techniques or solutions to control buildings from swaying or drifting in architectural terminology. They use 3 different techniques here in the city. And guess what? The St. Regis has all 3. So let's talk about them right now. Strategy number 1, if we were to go all the way to the top of the St. Regis, the last floor inside of the building, you can't see it, but I promise they're there, you will find huge water tanks. Those water tanks are there because they balance the swaying or the drifting. So when the building is moving, the water moves to the opposite direction, keeping it safe and secure. Strategy number 2, if you look at the bottom of the building, you're going to see that all the structures in the bottom are bundled up together, supporting the height of the building. Strategy number 3, all the way at the top of the building, you're going to see the 2 floors of the St. Regis are gone. They don't exist. They're empty. Well, those are called the blown-through floors. And they basically cut the wind, allowing the building to stay safe and secure. Now, there's a little secret. You have to promise that you're not going to tell anyone. Okay? But those 2 floors up there, they were actually not included in the original design. They were added after the design was completed because it wasn't safe enough and the building was dancing too much. And they made a lot of people very angry because a lot of people lost a lot of money. They weren't able to sell 2 floors of the St. Regis And just between you and me, one of the penthouses up there, the middle one, in 2023, was sold for $20.5 million. I know, but in my opinion, it looks so much better like that. It's so much edgier. Now, let's talk about the name. Let's talk about the name Chicago, because we sure have a lot of nicknames here in Chicago. The Second City, the Windy City, City of Broad Shoulders, and many others. But where does the name Chicago come from? Well, for that I have to honor and mention the native people that owned the land before Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable first arrived to the city of Chicago. These were called the Council of the Three Fires, the Keepers of the Faith, the Keepers of the Trade, and the Keepers of the Order. The name comes from their language, Chicawa, which roughly means stinky onion. This area was very muddy and smelly back in the 1700s, and they used to call it the stinky onion or the crazy garlic. So New York gets to call themselves the Big Apple. Here in Chicago, we call ourselves the Stinky Onion, proudly. Now let's get into more architecture, and let's talk about this beautiful building coming up right in front of us on our right side, with lots of windows, a huge American flag, and a clock on the top. That's the Wrigley Building. Same Wrigley as Wrigley Field, the baseball stadium here in Chicago. Up of the Cubs, go check it out on the north side. Wrigley the Gum and Wrigley the Candy. The building was designed in the early 20s, and this was a very specific time in Chicago because architects in the early 20s didn't really have their own unique architectural regional style developed yet. So what did they do? They got their inspiration from European designs. This building was inspired by a Spanish cathedral in Sevilla, Spain called La Giralda. That looks just like that. The style of architecture that it's using is called Spanish Revival, and if you notice closely, you're going to see that the building has tiny terracotta tiles. Actually has 250,000 terracotta tiles. And those tiles have to be hand cleaned once a year. And I don't know whose job is that, because I'm terrified of heights. But enough of Europe, bye-bye Spain, ciao, let's get American. Let's talk American. It doesn't get more American than this. Coming up, it's no introduction, because it has a huge name tag all over the building. It is the Trump International Hotel Tower. This building was finished in 2009, is the second tallest building in the entire city, and is using a style of architecture called contextualism. Contextualism is a very specific style of architecture that is all about being in conversation with its context, honoring its surroundings. If you notice closely, you're going to see that the building is shiny, is reflecting the city, and has three different set of patios. 1, 2, 3. Well, each set of patio actually matches the height of all the buildings surrounding it. The first patio is the same height as the Wrigley Building, the one we saw earlier in the tour. The second patio is the same height as the Jules Building, this building on our left side right in front of